All right, guys, welcome back to Burt's Basics. My name is Peter Burt. I teach at Box Elder High School, and today we are still going on the brain. So today we're trying to do the difference between your cerebrum, which is the largest portion of your brain, and your cerebellum, which is the little brain that a lot of people get confused with the occipital. So, guys, I'm going to try to teach you as cool stuff as I can, but once again, I'm really trying to focus on the things you need to know, which in this case is this guy right here. This is what the state asks you to know. It says describe the location and functions of the four lobes of the cerebrum, frontal, parietal, temporal, and occipital, and explain the major functions of the cerebellum. So good luck. Take some good notes. We have some questions at the end. Let's see how well we can do. So the first thing you have to know about the brain, and this is going to drive some of you insane, is the difference between the word gyrus and sulcus. Okay, gyrus and sulcus are singular, gyri and sulci are plural. So can I go ahead and do gyri first? Now notice the colors. Notice this is in blue. Okay, I want that to be in blue on purpose so you can kind of tell the difference. So here we go. Gyri, gyrus, 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 gyrus. So what do we notice about our gyrus if we look at the brain? The gyrus are the peaks or the mountain tops. The brain is highly folded to increase surface area, which gives it a lot more area to process, reason, think, stuff like that. But every mountain top is called the gyrus, okay, or gyri for plural, okay? So now let's go ahead and go to sulcus. So if gyri are mountain tops, then what do we think sulcus is going to be? Sulcus, 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 and I think I got one more. Oh, just kidding. That's all I got. Those are your sulci. So sulcus are the valley floors. So if you want to think of it as like a wave, okay, the top of the wave is the gyrus, the bottom of the wave is the sulcus. The reason why this is important, dun dun dun, is every fold in the brain gets its own name. That's right. So if you check this out on the back, check it out. OGY. That's the OG, okay? This is the occipital gyrus, or the mountain top. Okay, I want to talk about one in specific, and it's this guy right here. Notice I did him in red, because red is a valley floor or a sulcus. His name is a central sulcus. So if I could try to draw him to the best of my ability, sulcus, sulcus, sulcus. Most books say that gyri and sulci are like fingerprints, that everyone's brain is unique and has their own. The reason why the sulcus is so important is because the central sulcus separates the frontal lobe from the parietal lobe. So if you ever wondered how in the world you tell where one lobe ends and one lobe begins, this is your answer. So now look at these. I put these in blue on purpose because remember, blue was your gyrus over here. So this is my pre-central gyrus. Because remember, this is my central sulcus. This is my pre in front of the central, and it's a gyrus because it's mountain tops. This is my post-central gyrus. Now you might be looking at these and be like, Burt, why do we even care? You need to care more than you could ever imagine you need to care, because these guys are some of the most important things that we will ever study. So right here, here's my central sulcus. This is the one that divides my frontal lobe, which we'll talk about in just a second, from my parietal lobe. Okay, so if you want to know what the difference is, and check it out, here's my occipital lobe, and there is a division between him too. It's called the parietal occipital sulcus, which is a depression or valley floor. So if you guys understand how these gyri and sulci work, it really helps you to define the brain. But in psychology, oh dear mother goodness, this one right here is going to be one of the most important things you study in the frontal lobe. It's called the precentral gyrus, and it is in charge of motor functions. Motor, going out to go and do, talk to muscles and talk to glands. Motor, 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 motor. The parietal, see how this is the parietal lobe? He's in charge of sensory. So this is called your somatosensory strip. This is called your motor strip, and they're both right here by this guy. Every fold has its own function. Every fold has its own function. Now, you don't need to memorize this, but I wanted to show it to you so you can see what Weber's going to be like, or your next advanced classes are going to be like. Every gyri gets its own function, and these are called Brodmann's area. So if you want to Google this, it's called Brodmann's area. And what happens is they have a number. So look at number 4. So we looked, here's number 4, 4, and 4. If I go back a slide, this is where number 4 would be. So if you look at the function for number 4, what do you think number 4 would be? Well, it's called your it's your motor cortex. So this is in charge of most of your skeletal muscle right there. What about 3, 1, and 2? 312, 312, 312. Remember, this is my central sulcus. Oops, sorry, I'm moving camera, my bad. Okay, this is my central sulcus right here. So 312, if I go back a slide, this is going to be all your sensory. So when we show you the notes here in a second, and it says parietals is in charge of sensations, don't panic, because that's what 3, 1, and 2 is. Now, if you guys have had psychology, you should know what 17, 18, and 19 are. Oops, I forgot 19. Sorry, there's 19. Okay, notice they're all in the occipital region. I guarantee you can guess what those are all for. Those are all for vision. That is our vision center of the world. So now, if you really want to study the brain in depth, you can study every fold and its appropriate function. Now, in this class, they want you to do the following. Now, I know this looks scary. I got this from your detailed notes, so if you guys don't want to write down anything, just highlight. I thought it'd be very good of us to see what the state wants you to know. So right now, we're doing the frontal lobe. So it says here the frontal lobe, tells where it is found, and look what's in charge of: skeletal muscle, concentration, planning, problem solving, writing, and speech. That's what you need to know for my test. We're going to have a gigantic matching section. I'm going to say, what is the frontal lobe in charge of? I'm not going to say what's number 46, because honestly, I probably don't even know what number 46 is. But I know what the frontal lobe is responsible for. And if you notice, the biggest one I like is this one: skeletal muscles. This should make sense because number 4 is your motor strip in charge of your skeletal muscles. I'm going to have a tough time doing speech on a matching, because speech is one of those complicated things that belongs in multiple areas. So I'm going to have to try to do as basic as I can to make sure there's no gray area so you can be very successful on the test. So now let's go ahead and do my parietal lobe. Now it says some cool stuff about the parietal lobe, but check this out. It's responsible for sensations. Can I backtrack really quick? Do you remember how we talked about this post-central gyrus? Because it's a gyrus, because it's a mountaintop, is in charge of all sensory information. So does it surprise you that we're in charge of temperature, touch, pressure, and the almighty pain? I like pain because parietal starts with a P, and pain and pressure start with a P. So it really helps me understand that parietal pain, pressure, parietal pain, pressure. Once again, speech is such a complicated thing. I'm going to have a really, really tough time putting speech in a single gyrus of the brain. It's just going to be very difficult for me to do. Okay, now let's do temporal lobe. Okay, temporal lobe's off to the side here. So on this diagram, this would be your temporal lobe right here. Now, if you guys know the bones of the skull, you're going to be fine, because that's your frontal bone. This is your parietal bone, this is your occipital bone, and your temporal bone. So don't worry about location as much, worry about meaning. Okay, so there is a fissure, it's called a separator, it's called the lateral sulcus. So if I could draw that really quick, this is your lateral sulcus, okay, right here that we're talking about. Well, I guess I need a different picture. There you are, there's your lateral sulcus. So there's your lateral sulcus right there that separates all these from my temporal lobe. And the temporal lobe's in charge of these two that I really want: hearing and balance. Okay, those are the ones we're looking for. Now, you guys got to understand, they do so much more than this, but right now we're just trying to do the basics in anatomy, so I'm hoping this is helping you focus on what you need to know. Okay, occipital. Occipital lobe does a lot of cool stuff as well, but there's one thing we want to focus on more than anything else, and sorry, it's kind of cut off on the bottom of your screen here. It's these V words right here. He's in charge of vision. So if you go back to these Brodmann's area and you look at 17, 18, and 19, they're all going to be vision, 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 vision based. And that's what the occipital lobe is responsible for. So once again, going back to this, you might not have thought gyrus and sulcus were that important. But if you really want to study the brain, this is how you should study it. You should study what gyri 5 is for, what gyri 22 does. Okay, where is speech? Which gyri are responsible for speech? Either understanding of word or placement and order of words. Each one's unique, so it's kind of hard to do there. So those are my lobes of the brain. Okay, now let's go to my last part of this video, which is my cerebellum. Now, when I do this on the test and you have to visually label this guy, everyone freaks out because everyone mixes up with the almighty occipital. Occipital is directly superior of him, cerebellum's inferior of him. This guy is posterior of the brainstem. This is my cerebellum, which literally means little brain. Okay, now if we want to do this guy, we want to do two things that he's in charge of. Okay, and I don't know if I have notes for him, so I think I just have to tell you this. But he's in charge of balance and coordination. Now, if we remember, my frontal lobe was the one who was actually in charge of skeletal muscle. This is my motor strip right here on the pre-central gyrus, because he's mountaintop. But you guys got to know that he talks hand in hand with the cerebellum so we can know where we are. If I cut a cerebellum in half, it is one of the most pretty things you'll ever see. Do you see this white? It looks like a tree. I think it looks more like a fern, but if we look at this, this is a white tree. They call this cute arbor vitae. Arbor means tree, and vitae means life. So this is literally your tree of tree of life, excuse me. And if you notice, it is white in appearance because it is fast. And then this is all the gray matter on the outside. So the way you guys got to think of this is the cerebellum is responsible for where my body is in space, where my arm is, the angle of my arm. So when your frontal lobe tells the muscles to contract, think of the cerebellum as kind of coaching them on what's the smoothest way to contract to have the smoothest motion possible. And that's what your cerebellum is all responsible for. It's responsible for the coordination of muscle control and muscle movement. All right, ladies and gents, that's the end of this video. So do me a favor, just knock out this. What lobe is in charge of the following items? And then just kind of jot down your answers. Here comes the answer in 2 seconds. So I hope you guys enjoyed Burt's Basics. Study hard, work hard, and I'll see you on the flip side. Here's the answers.